For this question, it's asking us that ABC is a triangle in which angle ABC equals to 90 degrees, and P and Q are integers such that coordinates A are P, 10, the coordinates of B are -1, -5, the coordinates of C are A, Q. Given the gradient of AC is minus 6/7, work out the value of Q and value of P. So, first thing we need to understand is that when we actually draw out the triangle ABC, it's going to be a right triangle with what? The angle ABC is 90 degrees, right? So, when we actually draw out the lines that make the triangle on the grid, right, we're going to see that these two lines actually make a perpendicular, right? Which means the slope of the line right here, M1, and the slope right here, M2, is going to be what? M1 times M2 is going to make -1. Why? Because it's perpendicular, right? So, which means that these two slopes are going to be negative reciprocals. Which means that when you multiply them, you get -1. So, we're going to use that information first, and then use the information about the gradient of AC, which is -6/7, and create two equations about P and Q, subtract them to get our answers, okay? We're going to follow this plan in order to calculate this. But before that, how do we calculate slopes or gradients? So, we calculate the gradient by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So, first of all, I am going to calculate the slope of AB. Okay? Why do I calculate that? Because I want to use the information about how M1 times M2 is equal to -1. Okay? So, slope of AB, how do I get that? My first y2 is going to be this one, which is y2, and this is y1, and this is going to be my x2, and this is going to be my x1. So I'm going to use that and plug it into the gradient formula to calculate the slope, which is going to give me -5 minus 10 over -1 minus b. So that is going to give me -15 over -1 plus p, and that's going to give me 15 over 1 plus p, okay? And now I'm gonna get the slope of BC, right? Because AB and BC are perpendicular, right? So the slope of BC, in this case, is going to be, Q is going to be my y2, and -5 is going to be my y1, and 8 is going to be my x2, and -1 is going to be my x1. So plug it into the formula. I'm going to get Q minus -5 over 8 minus -1. And that's going to give me Q plus 5 over 9, right? And now I'm going to use the perpendicular formula M1 times M2 equal to -1. And then I'm going to multiply my M1 times M2, which is going to be 15 over 1 plus P times Q plus 5 over 9 equals to -1. And I'm going to get 15 times Q plus 5 equal to -9 times 1 plus P, right? So I'm going to calculate that. So when I divide each side by 3, I'm going to get 5 and 3, right? So 5Q plus 25 equals to -3 minus 3P, right? So 3p plus 5q equals to minus 22. Okay, that is my first equation. Or sorry, not 22, 28. That's my first equation right there. So my second step was about using the gradient of AC, which was minus 6/7. So my second step is about gradient of AC, which was minus 6/7. So I'm gonna calculate the slope, right? Slope of AC, which was, I'm gonna use the Q as my Y2 and 10 as my Y1, 8 as my X2, and P as my X1. So I'm gonna plug it into the formula again, and I'm gonna get Q minus 10 over 8 minus P is equal to what? Minus 6/7. So what I'm gonna get is 7Q minus 10 equals to minus 6 times 8 minus P. And I'm going to get 7Q minus 70 equals to minus 48 plus 6P. And which leads me to 6P minus 7Q is equal to what? It's going to be equaling to, that's going to be equal to minus 22, right? So that's my second equation. So now, in the third step, I am going to subtract these two equations about PQ, right? So my first equation was 3P plus 5Q equals minus 28. 3P plus 5Q equals minus 28. That was my first equation, and then it was 6P minus 7Q equals to minus 22. So since we noticed that these and these, if I multiply by 2, I can get it, I can double it. So I'm gonna write it here. It's gonna be 6P plus 10Q equals to minus 56, right? So we're gonna cancel this out and minus, so 6P cancels out, and then I'm gonna calculate 17Q equals to 34, which is equal to minus 2. And now we can plug in the value to get P, which is minus 6, right? So therefore, our answer for this question, P and Q values are each minus 6 and minus 2. So the key takeaways of this problem was understanding that when you multiply two gradients from which they're perpendicular like that, you get negative reciprocals, which means that when you multiply them, you get minus 1. So you are supposed to use that information to create one equation about P and Q, and then the other one using the gradient of AC, using the same equation about the gradient or the slope. And then you're supposed to multiply and then subtract them in order to get the individual values of P and Q.